She thought it was just another morning, stepping outside her beautiful home to grab the mail. But before she could even take a deep breath of fresh air, a group from the HOA showed up with sneers on their faces and cruelty in their hands. They laughed as eggs splattered against her door, staining not just the paint, but her sense of safety. What they didn't know, what they could never have guessed, was that this woman carried a strength far beyond appearances. Because when pushed too far, she was prepared to show them exactly what happens when hate meets discipline. Her name was Maya, a young black professional who had worked tirelessly to afford a home in a gated suburban community. For years, she had dreamed of a place like this, a quiet neighborhood, manicured lawns, and a sense of peace. But for Maya, peace had always been earned, never freely given. She lived alone, often working long hours at the hospital where she was a respected nurse. To the outside world, she seemed gentle, quiet, and unassuming. What most neighbors didn't know was that Maya had trained in martial arts since she was a child. Karate wasn't just a sport for her. It was discipline, control, and power in its purest form. Still, she never imagined she would need it here. Not in this neighborhood where she thought success and hard work might finally shield her from judgment. But the HOA president, a sharp-tongued woman named Linda, seemed determined to remind her that she didn't belong. From petty notes about her lawn to outright hostility at community meetings, Maya had endured it all with patience. Until one morning, when patience was no longer enough. The first egg cracked loudly against her front door. Maya flinched at the sound, spinning to see Linda and two HOA enforcers standing at the curb. Their smirks told her everything. This wasn't an accident, it was a message. "Maybe keep your house cleaner," Linda sneered, tossing another egg that exploded against the white siding. Neighbors peeked out from their blinds, watching, but none dared step forward. Maya's heart pounded, not with fear, but with the kind of anger that comes from years of being tested. She calmly placed her mail on the porch and walked toward them. Each step was deliberate, her body moving with quiet control, the same way she'd learned in the dojo. The HOA men laughed, one pulling out a carton of more eggs. "Relax, it's just a joke," he muttered. But Maya's silence unsettled them. Inside her mind, memories flooded back. Her father teaching her the first kata. Her sensei reminding her that strength is not in fighting, but in knowing when to stand firm. And right now, firm was exactly what she would be. Linda stepped closer, her voice dripping with disdain. "You don't belong here. People like you ruin neighborhoods like this." The words cut, but they didn't break Maya. Instead, they lit a fire. She raised her chin, her eyes sharp, and when one of the guards reached for her arm, she moved faster than any of them expected. With precision and control, Maya sidestepped, twisting his wrist just enough to send the egg carton tumbling to the ground. The man stumbled back in shock. The others stepped forward, but before he could touch her, Maya's stance shifted, her movements fluid, grounded, powerful. Neighbors gasped from their windows. For once, the quiet woman wasn't backing down. The HOA president shouted, "Grab her. Don't let her get away with this." But it was already too late. Maya's years of training had awakened, and her body moved with the speed of instinct. When the second guard lunged, she swept his leg cleanly, sending him crashing to the pavement. Gasps echoed from across the street. The first man tried again, his fists clenched in anger, but Maya's strikes were swift, controlled yet devastating. A block, a twist, and suddenly he was on the ground beside his partner, both clutching bruised pride more than broken bones. Linda froze, her face twisted from arrogance to fear in seconds. She had expected compliance, submission, never resistance, certainly not strength, and most of all, not power like this. Maya didn't chase her. She didn't need to. She simply stood tall, her breath steady, her eyes unshaken. The eggs that once stained her door now lay shattered at the feet of those who had tried to break her spirit. For the first time, Linda couldn't find words. Her finger trembled as she pointed, but no sound came out. The entire street was silent. Except this time, it wasn't the silence of bystanders ignoring injustice. It was the silence of realization that they had underestimated her. When the HOA security finally staggered to their feet, they didn't return with fists. They walked away with shame. Linda stumbled back to her car, her anger swallowed by fear she couldn't disguise. Maya stood in the driveway, her body still steady in its stance, but her heart heavier than ever. She hadn't wanted a fight. She had only wanted peace. But sometimes peace isn't given, it's demanded. The neighbors who had hidden behind blinds now stepped outside, slowly, hesitantly. Some looked at her with newfound respect, others with quiet embarrassment for not speaking up sooner. Maya didn't need their approval. What mattered was the message. She was not to be underestimated, and she would not be pushed out of her own home. That night, she scrubbed the egg stains from her siding. Each stroke of the sponge felt like wiping away years of silent endurance. For the first time, she felt like the house was truly hers, not because of the bricks or the mortgage, but because she had claimed it with her strength. Her story wasn't about violence. It was about dignity, about the strength to stand against hatred, even when it comes dressed as authority. And as Maya closed her door, she knew something had changed, not just for her, but for everyone who had watched, because now they knew. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it stands quietly until the moment it's forced to rise. So the question is, when injustice knocks on your door, will you have the courage to answer? Stories like this happen every day. If you believe they need to be told, then don't just watch. Share, comment, and subscribe. Because together, we can make sure voices like Maya's are never silenced.